My name is James. My world was a small dark room, a prison made of fear and silence. I lived with a foster family in America, but they were the source of my deepest pain. My foster father's eyes were cold, his voice a weapon, his hands a threat. I learned to be invisible, hoping if he couldn't see me, he couldn't hurt me. Every day was a battle for survival. I scrubbed floors until my knuckles were raw, cleaned until the smell of bleach burned my nose. Any mistake was met with punishment, anger exploding like a storm. I lived in high alert, always ready for the next blow. My foster mother watched in silence, her indifference confirming my pain didn't matter. I was 18, legally an adult, but felt like a helpless child. I had no money, no friends, no one to turn to. The world outside felt as cold as the world inside. Hope was just a word in books. Then one day my foster father announced we were going on a vacation, to Spain. I didn't understand why. They never did anything for me. For them, it was a trip. For me, just a new place to be afraid. A new place meant new dangers I didn't know how to avoid. I packed my few clothes into a tattered bag, hands shaking. I didn't know it then, but this trip would end the darkest chapter of my life. I was terrified, but something inside me stirred, a faint, unfamiliar hope. Maybe, just maybe, something could change. I clung to that thought as we left for the airport. I had no idea what waited for me in Spain, but I was about to find out, and nothing would ever be the same. The flight to Spain was my first time on a plane. The roar of the engines echoed my foster father's anger. I sat between them, trapped, trying to disappear. He drank, his mood darkening with every bottle. I watched clouds drift by, wishing I could float away. Every complaint he made felt like it was my fault. I braced for his anger, but the public setting was a fragile shield. When we landed in Madrid, the air was warm and alive, but I couldn't enjoy it. My fear was a heavy coat I couldn't take off. My foster father dragged me through the airport, barking orders. He hated everything: the language, the people, the sun. The hotel room was just another cell. The first days in Madrid blurred together. Crowded streets, his constant complaints, my head down. I glimpsed a beautiful city, but I was still a prisoner. I didn't know that my liberation was just around the corner. Something was about to happen that would change everything. I was still afraid, but the world outside was starting to seep in, and for the first time, I wondered if escape was possible. On our third day, my foster father was in a foul mood. He read that King Felipe VI would be in a public procession. "We're going to see the king," he sneered. I knew this wasn't about sightseeing, it was about his anger. The streets were packed, the crowd joyful, waving flags. For a moment I felt a spark of happiness, seeing families together. My foster father pushed to the front, dragging me along. He muttered poison, his rage a dark energy. I was trapped, an unwilling participant. Trumpets sounded, the procession began, guards on horses, then the king himself, waving with a gentle smile. The crowd cheered, united in pride, but my foster father saw only a target. I felt dread. Something terrible was about to happen. I tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. The moment of crisis was upon us. As the king's car approached, my foster father grew tense. I saw the wild look in his eyes, the look before he lost control. My heart pounded. I was frozen with fear. Suddenly, he vaulted over the rope, roaring with rage. The crowd gasped as he lunged at the king's car, shouting nonsense. He wanted to destroy something beautiful, to ruin the joy. The royal guards reacted instantly, tackling him to the ground. He fought back, but they subdued him quickly. The crowd's cheers turned to horrified silence. I stood trembling, watching them handcuff the man who had terrorized my life. For the first time, he looked small and pathetic. The king remained calm, reassuring the crowd. Then, his eyes met mine. In that brief moment, I saw not anger, but compassion. He saw my terror, my connection to the attacker. That single look changed everything. My world shifted in an instant. The darkness I'd known was pierced by a glimmer of light. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew my life would never be the same. After my foster father was arrested, I stood alone in the crowd, terrified. A royal staff member approached me gently. "His Majesty would like to make sure you're all right." Too shocked to resist, I followed him to the palace. Inside, I sat trembling, expecting interrogation. Instead, a kind woman brought me water, her simple decency overwhelming. Minutes later, King Felipe entered, now in a simple suit. He sat across from me, not as a monarch but as a concerned human being. "I'm sorry you had to witness that," he said, his voice full of empathy. "Was he your father?" I shook my head. "My foster father." The king nodded, understanding in his eyes. For the first time, I told someone the truth about my life. He listened patiently, never looking away. He didn't pity me. He respected me. "You're safe now," he promised. "You won't have to see him again." A weight began to lift from my shoulders. I felt seen, heard, and protected. The kindness I'd been denied for years was finally given. My life was about to change in ways I couldn't imagine. As we spoke, the door opened and a young woman entered. The king introduced her. "James, this is my daughter, Princess Leonor." I stood awkwardly, but her genuine smile put me at ease. She sat beside me, her voice gentle. "I heard what happened. I can't imagine how frightening it was." She spoke as a peer, not a princess. She asked about my hopes and dreams, a question I'd never been asked. I hesitated. I'd only dreamed of surviving. "It's okay if you don't know yet," she said. "Sometimes you have to be free before you can dream." She and her father wanted to help me, not send me back to America but offer a new start in Spain. The offer was overwhelming, a lifeline to a drowning boy. Tears streamed down my face, but for the first time they were tears of hope. "Yes," I managed. "I want that more than anything." She placed a comforting hand on my arm. Then it settled. "You're safe now, James." In that moment, hope ignited in my soul. I was no longer alone. The royal family would take care of everything. This was my new beginning. I felt a future opening before me. The darkness was finally lifting. I was ready to step into the light. My story was no longer just about survival, it was about possibility. I was about to discover who I could become, and I wasn't afraid anymore. The royal family kept their promise. With their help, I was granted asylum in Spain and given a small apartment in Madrid. For the first time, I had a space of my own. I cried the first night, overwhelmed by safety and peace. Princess Leonor became my guide and friend. She helped me enroll in language school and introduced me to her world. We walked through Retiro Park talking for hours. I shared my past. She listened with compassion. With her encouragement, I began to heal. The nightmares faded, and I learned to trust again. Leonor introduced me to her friends and I discovered laughter. I found a passion for photography, capturing the beauty of my new city. My foster father was convicted and sentenced in Spain. That chapter was closed forever. I focused on my future, studying art history at university. I was no longer the invisible boy from America. I was James, student, photographer, friend. I was building a life I was proud of. The world was full of color and possibility. I was finally free to become who I was meant to be, and I was no longer alone. I had found a family and a future. Over time, my friendship with Leonor deepened. Our walks became the highlight of my week. I loved her laugh, her passion, her kindness, but she was a princess, and I was just James. I tried to hide my feelings, afraid of losing her. One evening, watching the sunset, she asked, "James, what is it? You can tell me anything." I confessed. My gratitude had grown into love. I expected her to pull away, but she smiled. "I know, I felt the same for a long time." She hadn't fallen for a project, but for the man I'd become. Under the setting sun, she took my hand, not as a princess, but as the woman who loved me. Our relationship wasn't easy. Royal life brought challenges and scrutiny. The press was fascinated by our story. But we faced it all together. King Felipe and Queen Letizia gave us their blessing. They saw the happiness we brought each other. Our love was real and strong. We were a team, ready for whatever came next. I was no longer just a survivor, I was loved. Our story was no fairy tale, but it was ours. And it was just beginning. Together, we were unstoppable. The future was bright. Our wedding day was a fairy tale come true. The Almudena Cathedral in Madrid was filled with cheers and sunlight. This time I wasn't a scared boy in the crowd. I was at the altar, waiting for my bride. Leonor was breathtaking, not just a princess, but the woman who saved me. As we exchanged vows, I remembered the darkness I'd left behind. My life began the day I met her. She was my hope, my home, my new beginning. Our life is a partnership, supporting each other in royal duties and personal dreams. I found a family in the Spanish royal family who loved me as their own. I am no longer an orphan. I am a husband, a son-in-law, and one day, a prince consort. My story proves that hope can break through the darkest night. One act of kindness can change a life forever. My past shaped me, but it doesn't define me. Every sunrise, every kind word, every moment of love is a gift. Our journey is a message. Don't give up. You never know when a king might see your pain or a princess might offer you a new beginning. And sometimes, fairy tales are real.